Steph Roble and Maggie Shea have fought hard to earn the right to represent the USA in the 49er FX skiff at Tokyo 2021. And they're with me on the line today. So hello, Steph, and hello, Maggie.
Hi. Hello, Andy.
So here we are in different parts of the world. I'm in Winchester, UK. Steph, where are you?
I'm in Miami, Florida.
And Maggie, where are you?
Whitehall, Michigan.
Okay. So that's sort of a triangle between the three of us. You're in the same country, but you're the whole other side of Europe away from each other, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go back to January, just 3 or so months ago, to Geelong. Now, Steph, talk me through the scenario of what you needed to do. There was you needed to do well in a world championship, but this was also your qualifier, part of your selections for the US trials to represent the US in the 49er FX. So tell me the scenario going into that.
Yeah, so our trial selection was a 2-event series. The first event was the Worlds in Auckland in December 2019, where we finished 13th, and Paris Henkin and Anna Tunnicliffe finished 9th overall. So going into the Worlds in Geelong, we were 4 points behind them. And we had a really, we were both in the top 10 the whole week of the Worlds in Geelong, and kind of jockeying around positions. And then it basically all came down to the medal race, the last day of the regatta. And going into the medal race, they were 2 places ahead of us overall. They were in 4th and we were in 6th, but only 2 points behind them. And basically going into the medal race, it was a really exciting scenario. 3rd place through 10th place were totally open. The points were really, really close. And so we just said, all right, it's all on for this medal race. Let's go out and win the race and see what happens from there.
So Maggie, can you see the screen? Can you see the build up to the start here? We've got about a minute to go.
Yep.
So what were your thoughts at this stage? What was going to be your approach to this start? How much were you thinking about the perfect start? How much were you thinking about your American rivals?
We were thinking 2 things. One was we have to go win this race, and that's the only way we can win these trials is to win the race. So let's go do that. And it's not something we frequently say to each other, because I think that's kind of an irrational racing mentality. So it was sort of a unique way to start a race. Go into a race. And at this pre-start, we really just talked about focusing on all the little steps, and focusing on the process and not thinking about the result and not thinking about the task, of beating the other team. It was really like, okay, we know we have to win this race, so now we have to focus on the little steps. It was really windy too, and the breeze was building. It doesn't quite look like it in this photo, but it was forecasted to build. It was building, and we also knew it was going to be a fun race. So I think both of us were very excited and amped to sail. Now I've got a question for you, Andy. Was this the first start, or was this the second? Or was this the restart?
I believe this is the restart, so we will find out in a moment. But I think this is I think this is it. But we'll find out in a moment. And if we find that this is the first start, well, you can tell me about that anyway. So let's have a look at it. So I don't know if you can pick yourselves out. That we've got an American team right at the top end, have we?
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah,
okay.
We're by the committee vote.
Now, do you recall, would this be the actual start? Do you remember being up there?
This was the first start.
This is the first start. Okay. So We've got 38 seconds to go. What are you thinking at this stage?
Well, we knew we wanted to go left, and the pin end was a little bit favored. As you can see, it's starting to get a bit stacked up. But we didn't want to start in a high traffic area. And we knew that, with it being a medal race and the line being short, that the bias didn't matter as much. So we really just wanted a big lane off the start to just rip to the left-hand side and control as much of the fleet as we could.
4 seconds to go. It looks like Denmark 49 is going to break the start early, and there's a lot of boats over early, and you were pretty well poked out at the top end. Do you think you were over there, Maggie?
No, I don't. And I was going to say that we did put a lot of emphasis on this start, on being on the line and not giving up an inch, because we thought it would be a drag race to the left side of the course. So we were really careful to get a good line transit, careful to get a good line bias. And I was saying that other boats were over at the pin, but we were not. So we were pretty confident in that at the time.
Okay. And what was the reason for the recall?
Well, there was a bit of confusion.
Tell me.
The race committee boat put up an X flag. The signal boat put X flag. But I believe it was a mark boat put up a general recall flag. So I kept looking back to the race committee boat and saying, it was an X flag. We don't need to go back. But then eventually, as you can see, boats are just sort of dropping off. We think there was some immediate confusion about who was over early. So a few boats that were close went back. But then definitely some of the other boats, I think, saw the general recall flag from the Markset boats sooner than we did.
Now, I know not everyone is still in play there, but even when all 10 boats were in play, you must have been pretty pleased with how that start worked out. Pretty gutted that you had to go back on this one.
Yeah, we didn't say it, though. We were just like, okay, well, we have to go do this again.
Have both of you been heavily involved in match racing in a previous life before the FX?
Yeah.
Yeah, so both of you. So I just wonder, Steph, how much does that sort of background of match racing, where it's very binary, you win or lose, how much does that harden your mentality and make you focus on the processes maybe more than someone that's just done the fleet racing?
Yeah, I think it was super applicable, especially in this situation. You know, we entered this last day of racing saying we're either going to the Olympics or we're not on this day. So it was pretty binary in our minds, this scenario. So I think, you know, there were a lot of skills from match racing that helped us to just reset a lot faster, especially after this first false start. And yeah, I think it was super helpful for us.
But you're not letting this go, are you? So we got 4 boats still racing. So what's going on here exactly?
Well, I think there was still a lot of confusion. I think the committee boat was still showing an X flag, and there was another race committee boat that was going around the front of the fleet showing a general recall. And then we didn't turn back until we saw an abandonment flag from the Windward Mark boat.
Right, okay. So you weren't taking any risks on that.
We didn't want to turn back.
No, I don't blame you either. Anyway, so there you are, heading back down. Let's just see if we can find the build up to the next start. So we can see the preparatory flag is in place there. So you can't be too far away. Oh. So you must be in. So you've got 47 seconds to the start. And that's the Spanish we're looking at there, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So the Spanish who ended up going on and winning this regatta, we got 35 seconds to the start. Maggie, talk us through your start for what will be the actual start this time round.
We talked about, a handful of boats were likely over last time. So the fleet is pushing the line or going to be very accurate. So we checked in on our line transit. And we just kept saying, hey, let's go do that again. It was a little different scenario because Paris and Anna, USA 9, are directly to leeward of us. So in the back of our mind, we were thinking, hey, don't get distracted by that, or, continue to focus on our start.
So USA come out the middle of the line, 2 boats doing extremely well out of the middle, and your rivals in USA 9 get away to a good start. Look like they're going to roll over the top of the Brits to leeward, but you've held your space, you've held your gap with Paris and Anna, so you're in a pretty good position as well. So now it looks like you're in a drag race. How did it feel at this point, Steph?
Yeah, it was exactly that. We just wanted to hang on their hip as long as possible. They're really fast in these conditions, so like Maggie said, we were really just trying to focus on our boat and making it go as fast as we could and executing, good speed on their hip. It's a really tough position to live in, obviously, and but we wanted to live there as long as possible because we did want to keep going towards the left. And it was the course was set up, so it was a pretty long port tack. So we knew if we could hang there for a while, we could come in really strong to the Windward Mark.
Maggie, how are you gauging your speed compared with the Americans and the other boats around you?
I just remember focusing on hiking as hard as I could and asking Steph, are we leading the attack? Are we matching? And I remember trying to hike so hard that like my toes hurt and my shoulders hurt on the height and the straps of my trap harness. And, Steph and I are not the tallest or the biggest. And I just remember thinking like, we can just hike harder. We can hike harder. But I was trying really hard not to look at the other boat and really just focus on sheeting our boat well and keeping us flat and asking Steph how the helm felt.
And how do you compare for height and weight compared with your American rivals?
We're lighter and shorter.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are going to potentially struggle in these conditions, just in pure sort of size terms, I suppose. It looks there on the tracking light they have stretched forwards on you, so they have made a bit of a gain on you there. Was that to be expected, bearing in mind what we were just talking about, Maggie?
Yeah, potentially. I think they're also really good at balancing the boat, and their technique is very good in this. So I think the size and weight can give you a little bit of an advantage, but also kudos to them. The entire regatta, they were so fast in this condition and in a lot of conditions. And so I don't want to diminish it by just saying they were bigger and therefore faster, because they sailed the boat really well on this stuff.
No, fair enough. So, Steph, you were marginally the first boat to tack there. Did you tack there because you wanted to, or were you partly forced by the fact that USA 9 had moved ahead of you?
Yeah, we were certainly reaching the limit of how much longer we could hang on their hip. But as you can see, the Germans tacked out, and we were getting close to port tack ley line, so we knew we wanted to tack shortly after the Germans tacked. But that being said, we wanted to be patient enough that we had a nice big lane coming back on port, because we were going to be spending so much time on that tack. So yeah, I think, we were balancing how much longer we could hang on the hip versus like how much time we needed to create a good lane on port.
Now, I don't know about USA 9 and where they are on the ley line, but they really look like they're fast and low there. They look like they're trying to foot down to you. Would you agree with that, Maggie?
Yeah, I would. And this perspective doesn't really show it, but we were also talking about having to stay in front of the other boats at this point. I wouldn't say it was necessarily a total match race yet between us and USA 9, because we weren't confident with how we'd come in on the boats that are on starboard, and the Germans are also quite fast to leeward of us. And so we were just thinking all speed all the time here.
So you've got two American teams here really rising to the occasion, because so often when the pressure hits in sailing, we don't see people perform their personal bests. But you two American teams, just when you need to, you really look like you're pulling out the stops. Again, coming back to the match racing background, how much does that background toughen you up for these kind of situations, would you say, Steph?
Yeah, I think it's just, like I talked about earlier, in match racing, you might have, a race that you win and you need to quickly reset for the next one. And, I think being able to have those techniques to mentally reset or mentally power through, and forget what's happened in the past or what might happen in the future, and just really focus in on the present moment to execute your best. It's really important.
Right. So the red mark, is that our turning mark that we're looking at?
Yeah, that's our windward mark.
That is your windward mark. Okay, so USA 9 very close to that ley line. You're marginally first on to tack, but they're going to be first round, and you're right on their tail. Let's look at how USA 9 go into the hoist under a bit of pressure from you chasing behind, with the Germans very close behind you. We see the rest of the fleet coming round. What are your thoughts at this stage, Steph, in terms of your attacking moves and your defending moves?
Our whole goal there was just to have a really good bear away, which I think we did. And Maggie just absolutely ripped the kite up. She had a really, really fast hoist. And as you can see here, we're the yellow kite. We had a really nice a bear away, which put us in a position to be just to leeward and just behind the Americans in the red spinnaker. So that put us in a really controlling position going into the downwind right side of the course and the jibe point.
while we're here, while we're looking at the Spanish who go on to win these World Championships, they're in a fight in their own match race for gold or silver against the British team. We've seen Echegoyen win the Worlds, I think it was 4 years ago in the lead up to Rio 2016. But we saw, for example, the Olympic champions from Brazil. They didn't even make the medal race in Geelong. We saw a few of the favourites not do particularly well. What was it about this regatta that brought out maybe a change in the pecking order, would you say, Maggie?
Well, I think back-to-back world championships are tough. I think it's hard to be sort of like mobilized on that high of a level in order to produce a really good result at both worlds over that period of time. And so I wouldn't necessarily expect the same team to win both worlds. But also I would add to that over the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of different names on the leaderboard, maybe more so than the last quad. And so I think that does speak to the development in the fleet, that the talent is getting deeper and it's getting harder to get at the top and stay at the top.
It's a maturing fleet from that point of view. It looks like the two Americans were just underneath our image. I'll just see if I can move that over. So it looks like the yellow kite and the red kite of the other Americans were really struggling to get into that leeward gate. What was the chat on board at the time, Steph?
We were quite overstood. As you can see here. We actually, the way it played out, the Germans kind of we all jibed almost at the same time, but the Germans got ahead of us a bit, and then they jibed towards the right-hand gate, and we wanted to go straight to the left-hand gate looking downwind. So we ended up ducking the Germans, which, in 12 knots of breeze is pretty busy to do, but let alone 20 knots of breeze. So we ducked behind the Germans and kind of lost a little bit of control as we dug our leeward wing in. I think right as Maggie was starting the takedown, I dug the wing into the water. So we just, from there, we all hands on deck to make sure that we didn't capsize, because we knew it was race over if we capsized there. And Maggie went like full Tarzan mode to hang on the wire and make sure that we didn't capsize there. And we saved it. But as you can see here, the Americans overlapped us to windward, and their spinnaker hit me after they overlapped us. So we hailed protest and contact and blew our flag. And
where was your flag? How do you have time to get a flag out, and where does it appear from in moments like that?
I think this is where the match racing expertise actually came in handy. We had our flag in our life. I had the flag in my life jacket. So I just, I dropped the main sheet at that point. So I had one hand free. I don't know how I got the flag out, but I managed to get it out and protest, and then went for contact and just tried to find the umpires who were to leeward of the gate. Right.
And so at what point did Henken and Tobias take their penalty turn?
You'll see it here. It plays out. They do it just after we round the leeward mark.
Okay. So, not what you were looking for, but that's a gift for a match racer, particularly like you. And of course, Anna Tobias, she was no slouch in the match racing either. So you both know the game. You both know that if there's contact, someone's going to have to pay for it.
Yeah, you can see them going into their circle here. But we had no idea of any of this stuff that was, any of this chaos that was going on behind us. So it's pretty fun to rewatch this.
Absolutely.
When we got to shore that day, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, congratulations. You have to watch that leeward mark rounding. It was insane. No one rounded it normal." We're like, "What's the problem?" Then we watched it. We were like, what was going on back there?
As you said earlier, Maggie, maybe these pictures don't really do justice to how windy it felt down at sea level. We're not really getting that from these drone shots, but you can see by the boat handling issues down at the leeward gate that people had a bit on in those breezes.
Yeah, totally. I think there was an increase in pressure and also a bit of a right shift maybe that made us all kind of more overstood than we were initially, and it was just chaos. Yeah, it's quite funny to see.
Right, so here you are. You're going out to the right-hand side, and you're looking pretty good. But let's see where those dots are. So at the moment, it's just jumped to you. The bronze dot has just jumped to you as you move into second place, with Herzog and Lawrence from Germany currently leading. So what are your thoughts at this stage, Steph? What do you need to do?
Well, I thought we were in a really exciting position, and we kept focusing on making the boat go as fast as we could. And like Maggie mentioned, there was a bit of a right shift in this moment. So, with the way that the day was set up, it was pretty cloudy overall, but you could see pressure pretty clearly moving down the course. And we saw a really nice right-hand pressure. And as soon as we got into that, we tacked onto starboard and just wanted to cross the course and really nice pressure on the lifted tack and see how we came back together with the boats on the left, kind of while keeping an eye on the boats that are continuing to the right of us.
And how much was it a boat speed day? How much was it watching the breeze moving kind of day? Maggie, would you say?
Well, my day was 100% focused on boat speed, and Steph's day was 100% focused on the breeze coming down. But I think it was more boat speed than anything, because the shifts were, I think, pretty small. And if you could just keep your boat going fast and minimize maneuvers, you're going to be okay. I also remember at this moment, after we rounded the gate and went left, just before we tacked, I remember just saying to Steph, like, "Oh, I'm dead. You got to look around." Because that leeward bark incident, which now looking back on tape, it looks like it was 10 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. It felt like it was 10 minutes, and I just remember being like so physically and mentally exhausted after that leg, and just being like, okay, got to dig deep, keep the boat flat, keep going fast, keep the boat flat, keep going fast, think about the next thing. So Steph was really eyes out making all the decisions here, and I was just trying my hardest to keep the boat flat and fast.
It is really hard, those drops, isn't it? For the crew in particular, it's really hard to get your head back together again after all the physical effort that you have to put in getting the kite back in. And I don't think you really understand that until you've done it. You wonder why it is so hard until you've tried it yourself, and then you realise that engaging brain and engaging biceps at the same time is quite difficult.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and also thinking you're going to capsize, you just pull harder than you ever have on your bail, and you pull faster. It's just like it's the biggest effort you could possibly make in those moments when you think you're going to capsize. No part of you is ready to surrender or let it happen. So you just push as hard as you can. And that is exhausting. But luckily these medal races are short. So,
well, here you are. You're now up in the lead. So what put you in the lead? Was it being on the right side of that right-hand shift, Steph?
Yeah, I think there was some really nice pressure over there and a nice little right shift. And we had really nice lanes, the way that we were first ones to round that left-hand gate looking downwind, and then we tacked onto starboard in a really nice fat open lane and nice pressure. And I think that just brought us across the course in a really good position.
Meanwhile, here's the other match race going on. It's between the Spanish, who we're on board with, and the Brits, GBR7, just to their right. I'm sure you weren't even thinking about what was going on with these two. But we've got these two parallel match races with a lot at stake for both of them. But we'll find out what happens a little bit later on between Spain and GBR. So at the moment, Henken and Tobias are back in second. You're up in first. Hands up, anyone who's feeling comfortable yet in this race. No hands up. So, because no one ever is in a 49er FX skiff race, especially in these conditions. I mean, anything can go wrong very quickly. What are your primary concerns at this stage, Maggie?
First of all, the bearway and hoist is always a dicey moment when it's really windy. So I was thinking about gathering a lot of main sheet to make sure that would go smoothly, and just focusing on the little steps and taking a breath, taking a breath before every maneuver and finding those moments to pause and get my mind straight, and then go into the maneuver. So yeah, the bearway, and then obviously the jibe. And we've learned if we say or think, don't capsize, okay, we can't capsize, then you do capsize every time. And so I was thinking a lot about keep the sheet under control and move through the boat and get out there quickly, keep the sheet under control, get out there quickly. And that's all I was thinking about. I don't think we looked back until we crossed the finish line.
So you're just coming back to your point there. Are you saying you can't afford to think about the negative? You can't afford to think don't capsize. You've got to think about what the opposite of that is.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to think about the proactive step. It's like when you're learning to drive a car and they tell you if you look at something, you're going to hit it. You know, you can't look at what you're trying to avoid hitting. Feels a bit that way. If I think, okay, don't capsize us, it's the last race. Don't capsize us, it's the last jibe. Then I do get nervous and I get distracted by that thought. And so we actively think about, okay, what am I going to do to have a good normal jibe? We've jibed a million times. I just need to keep the sheet under control and move crossbow quickly. And yeah, exactly. It's a proactive mindset as opposed to the negative one.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Well, talking about things that you don't want to go wrong, let's just look at the battle between the Spanish, who are on the right of our picture, and the Brits, who are just hoisting the yellow Jenica GBR7. They're in the middle of their hoist, and a bit of a lean to leeward, and whoops. And so, I mean, I'm sure we've all done that, haven't we, girls? But what do you think went wrong for them there, Steph?
It looks like the boat just got a little unbalanced in the bearway. And like Maggie said, you know, the bearway in this kind of breeze is a really shaky moment. So it takes really good communication and boat handling between the skipper and crew to make a nice, smooth and successful bearway in these conditions.
And Drew Malcolm, who works for the class on the media side as well, he drew my attention to an Instagram post of just 4 years ago, I think it was, with you, Steph, learning how to trapeze. And, it just made me realize how far you've come in the last 4 years. I mean, if you go and search out that Instagram post anyway, it's very gracious of you to post your least gracious moments for everyone else's enjoyment on Instagram. But you have come a long way in these skiff boats, haven't you?
Thank you. Yeah, Pitchpole Central was pretty excited about seeing that one. But I would say, I think, you know, it's just a testament to, I've had some really good teachers along the way. Maggie, you know, being the first one, and then our coach, Julia Conti. You know, they've just been absolutely incredible teachers and teammates. And yeah, you got to start somewhere. So that's where I started.
Yeah, well, I mean, coming from, I'm presuming, primarily keelboat style match racing. Most match racing seems to happen with lead hanging off the bottom of the boat. I mean, there's nothing to get you out of jail on these boats. It's all down to crew balance, and that must have been quite a learning curve. Yeah,
I really appreciate the physical challenge of this boat. You know, I'd love just becoming a better athlete, and this boat, you know, the stronger you become, the harder you can push it. So Maggie and I together really enjoyed the challenge of learning to sail this boat at the top of the fleet.
Excellent. Well, let's see how you're doing at the top of this fleet. So we're going down the run. We can see the yellow Jenica in the far distance. That's the blue Jenica of ESP 23, the Spanish that look almost certain now to win the gold medal after seeing their British rivals capsize. And then in the distance, just to the back, we see your yellow Jenica sailing away. So thoughts at this stage of the race now, Maggie?
I was asking Steph how she felt on leyline there, and I was thinking about hiking as hard as I possibly could and easing the sheet. At some point when it was clear that we were laying the finish line and we didn't need to jibe again and no one else could get in there ahead of us, I remember grabbing Steph's leg and saying, because that's kind of right next to where I'm hiking, and I said, hey, I'm really proud of how we sailed that race no matter what happens. So I think at that point we didn't feel relieved yet by any means, but I did feel proud. I felt like, hey, really good sailing there. That was the best we could do, and we did the best we could, and that is what it is. I was really proud of Steph and myself at that moment.
Okay, so feeling some level of confidence that you were going to cross the finish line of the medal race in first place. And Steph, just clarify for us, if you did cross the finish line in first place, did that mean that you were definitely going to do what you needed to get selected?
No, we knew that, you know, all we could do was win the race and kind of see how everything came about from there.
So remind us, what did you need to see behind you? Henken and Tobias, they needed to stay outside of the top. How many was it?
7.
Yeah.
Sorry, this top
7.
So at the moment they are in 7th. So would that mean that they would beat you as things stood right now? Because as I see it, they are in seventh.
So seventh or worse. Sorry.
Oh, I see. So it really is as close as that. So it was literally down to that. You could not afford for them to overtake one boat. Otherwise, you would not have been selected for the games.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. So at what point, because you always know that funny stuff could play out, although the decisions in a medal race are meant to be made there and then by the umpires with no recourse to protest and all the rest of it. My question really then is, at what point do you start celebrating?
Well, like Maggie said, we crossed the finish line and we just said to ourselves, like, we're really proud of that race, no matter, what the result is. And we got to the coach boat where Julia and Dave Allman were, and they both had tears in their eyes. And immediately I was like, are these good tears? Or are they bad tears? I didn't know. So they eventually said, okay, you guys won the bronze medal, which we were just absolutely stoked about. Getting on the podium at the Worlds was our goal in this quad. And we were just really excited to achieve that goal. And we sat there and watched how the finish, the boats came to the finish line, and just kind of slowly waited for the results, the official results to come through. And, kind of like Maggie's lured mark rounding it was probably only a minute or so, but it felt like 10 minutes just waiting to get the official news. And once we got the official news, we all just went in for a really big, massive team hug. It was a really exciting moment.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations to you both. And then, of course, you had the best part of 6 months, but not much more to get ready for Tokyo 2020. And then we entered the CV19 era, the coronavirus era. So now there is this strange scenario where you're not going to be competing at the Games until July 2021. So, Maggie, when you can't go sailing, how do you keep on making sure every day that you're going to be a better sailor by the time you start race one of the Olympic Games?
Well, to back it up a little bit, we felt like we had so much work left to do after that regatta, and 6 months felt like an incredibly short amount of time to do it. So what's going on right now with the CV19 pandemic is entirely tragic, and our thoughts are with everyone that's dealing with it and negatively affected by it. But I would say that a small silver lining for us has been feeling like we have more time to work on all of these goals. So there's so much left to learn, so much, strength to be gained. And so, in terms of physical fitness, we're pretty adapting to like a house routine is pretty normal for us. We're used to working with random bits and bobs and, having a travel schedule that's kind of crazy and working with a remote coach. So we're able to continue all of that. And we've been doing webinars every day with the US sailing team to do deep dives into some pretty technical topics that we haven't had time for in the past. And so that's been a bit of a gift. But we're staying mentally in it also by, I've been doing a lot of like virtual webinars with junior sailors, and I love those hour or 2 hour talks where we get to think about sailing and talk about tactics and course management and whatever it might be. That really has helped keep me mentally engaged. And we go through our trackers together, and that's been really fun. So I think there are some definite positives that will come out of this sort of pause. It felt like everything came to a screeching halt a few weeks ago, but now that we've gotten a bit of a routine, we can definitely be productive with this time.
Steph, I know you've got to run to another call. Maybe it's another Zoom call. Just tell me, how long have we got?
About 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay. All right. So, yes, sometimes out of these, athletes always find opportunity out of adversity. And I've been speaking to people, for example, like Lily Xu, who was injured from January. I think she fell off a bike in Miami, and this is January 2012. She couldn't race for 3 months. She couldn't get in the boat for 3 months while that injury healed up from her hand. She studied a lot of YouTube. She read a lot of books. She worked on her core fitness. She got back in for Hierro Olympic Regatta at the end of April. It was super windy. And she won that regatta, and she then went on to win that amazing medal race, the four-way fight for 3 medals at London 2012 in the laser radial. So she actually puts down her success partly to the things that she was able to focus on, and partly to allow the body to recuperate physically, but also to recuperate mentally as well before that final, albeit very short 3-month push back in the boat towards Weymouth 2012. So Maggie's given us some insight into how you're spending your time and how you're not wasting this time. In what way will you be a better sailor because of this coronavirus than maybe you wouldn't have been otherwise?
I would say, we really love being on the water and we love training really hard. And, it's a time for us to just press pause, like Maggie said, and just pump the brakes a little bit. And like you said, Andy, just focus on, being mentally sharp for the next time we do hop into the boat, and mentally and physically recovered, and also, our strongest. So we're just trying to make the most out of this time that we can. And, we do miss being on the water. I miss being around my team, but we're just focusing on the controllables. And I think that's something that is really applicable to everyone's lives right now. It's, how do we maintain a positive mindset? Kind of make the most out of every situation, and then just focus on what we can control. And that's how we approach racing, and that's how we're approaching this time right now.
Maggie, it sounds like after Geelong, despite winning a bronze medal and having a fantastic finale, the shopping list of things to go and work on was still very long. What did you identify as the number one target that you needed to work on after Geelong?
Right after Geelong, we wanted to get back to working on our boat handling. That's something that when we do a lot of racing for extended periods of time, we sort of put on pause, maybe. I would say that's not the focus. And we wanted to also increase our body mass, get bigger, get stronger. That's very hard to do when we're on the road for extended periods of time, to eat and work out regularly. And so we thought, okay, we'll take this period of time to just do some gut busting boat handling drills, get back into that, maybe experiment with some new techniques, spend a lot of time in waves, which we haven't done in a long time, but that'll be really essential to sailing well in Japan. So that's what we took about 2 weeks off after Geelong, and then we got back into it in Miami. And that was really fun. It was, it's really nice to shift gears from pretty high intensity racing to training again, because you can take the time to talk about little things that you haven't in a long time. You can focus mental energy on small technique things. And Steph absolutely loves like training days. We'll finish a really hard practice and stuff will be like, I just love training. I love practicing. I love this routine. I love this. And I really like wrestling with the new techniques and concepts when something's really hard and you're terrible at it for a little while. So we both really dig the training part of it. And we love that part of the process. And so that was fun to kind of, sink our teeth into right after Geelong.
Steph, in your world, people seem to talk about process goals and outcome goals, and us mortals tend to think of goals only as what you get at the end of the regatta, what colour medal, what step of the podium. If you love the training so much, just tell us about how you get psyched up to go training, because I think a lot of amateur sailors don't really understand why you pros love this training thing so much.
I would say I love challenges and I love learning. So, that's kind of the ultimate thing for training for me is the opportunity to learn every day and just get better with my teammates. I don't really know how to describe it much more than that. It's really fun for me. And, the environment's, it is what you created. And, if you have good training partners and a good routine, and it just makes it a really fun, productive time.
Maggie, you say that you can sort of draw breath a little bit more because suddenly it's not Tokyo 2020, it's Tokyo 2021. But at the moment, time on the water is not being granted to you, or as far as I know, many sailors in the world. Maybe we could address that. I don't know if anyone is still sailing out there at the moment, but I would say probably most of your competitors and rivals are not able to go sailing at the moment. The advantage that some of them have, like the Brazilians and the Kiwis who maybe didn't do so well, in Geelong is that they've got all those years of campaign experience behind them. They've the two cases I mentioned, gold and silver medal from Rio 2016, for example. So maybe they don't need the time as much as you do. So I've thrown you a hard question there. How do you respond to that?
I would say that you're certainly right. They've got more time as a team in the 49er FX. However, I've actually been sailing the 49er FX since 2013. I sailed with several different skippers last quad, and Steph jumped in 2016 after I lost the last trials. But Steph and I both bring a really diverse set of experiences to this campaign, and I think we're actually unique as a team in terms of how many different types of boats and different types of racing we've competed in. Steph was a part of while I was sailing 49ers with other people, Steph was a part of some really high-level professional campaigns, teams that she sailed on professionally. She won an Etchells World Championship. She had several very competitive J70 teams, August 20 teams that she did really well at nationals and worlds and so forth. So she brought a lot to the campaign in terms of understanding how to run a professional team, and her intellectualized understanding of tactics and strategy. It was really hard. She had a really high level of understanding of all that. So it was more of applying these principles to a different platform. She wasn't learning how to race, and as we were selling FX together, she was learning how to apply what she had learned to this boat. And Steph and I, like you mentioned earlier, did a lot of match racing, which involves a lot of different kinds of keel boats. Even our sailing backgrounds are really different. Steph was like running a professional optimist campaign back when I was like tooling around on boats with my family and sailing butterflies on inland lakes and just having fun, So we've both come at it from we started in really different places and then sailed together, for the first time 15 years ago. And then our paths diverged a little bit again during and after college. And I'm just really grateful for the numerous amounts of different fleets and different boats that we've both been in, because I do think it helps us, on the 49er FX race course. So you're right. They've got more time in this boat than we do, and definitely in the Olympic experience. But
you're not lacking an experience. Okay. So we got this sort of open-ended period where we don't know when we're going to be released out of lockdown. I suppose that will vary from country to country, and then someone somewhere is going to start posting pictures on social media of them going out sailing, and the rest of us are going to get really, really envious of that. I guess we'll have to deal with that as and when it comes. But Steph, what are your goals in terms of going to the Olympics now that you've won a medal at World Championship level? Presumably, it's not just a dream to believe that you could do the same at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, winning a medal at the Games is the ultimate goal for us. And, we really are excited to carry forward the momentum that we have from winning the bronze medal at the Worlds into the Olympics. And, I think it's going to be a balance of learning new things and finding new ways to do things, but also, remembering our strengths and building off our strengths. So, it's a really exciting time.
And Maggie, I said earlier about how often sailors seem not to put in personal bests at Olympic Games. It's sometimes those that keep their heads while all around you are losing theirs. But you must draw great strength from the way that you rose to the occasion in Geelong, and how much will you carry that with you as you go into the Games and into the most high pressure environment there is in sailing?
Well, I think we knew that the Olympic trials were going to be a really tough fight going into it. Paris and Anna are both incredible sailors. They both have a long list of accomplishments. And so we knew they were really learning and advancing quickly, and this was going to be really tough. We faltered a bit in the beginning of the 2019 Worlds, and we really had to crawl back and claw as much as we could back from that result. And we were both very proud of it because we proved to ourselves, hey, we turned this regatta around from being in 25th to 13th. And I was so proud of that result, even if it's a double-digit score, but it really did prove like we can dig deep and double down and do this, and we can focus on what we can control. And that was our result in our race, and we couldn't control how they were racing. And so I think we proved to ourselves that that's a successful mentality. If we can continue to learn from race to race within a regatta, if we can just focus on what's in our control and the process of executing good, not perfect races. I think we believe in that very deeply and very fully now, and we believe in ourselves. And so I don't want to go into the Olympics and say, this is my, this medal is my goal, and if I don't achieve that, then I haven't accomplished anything. I don't want to do that. I want to say, we want to go in and execute the skill set that we've been working so hard on for 6 or 4 years. And if we do that, I'm going to walk away proud of what we've done. And I believe that going into Worlds, and I, will believe that going into the Olympics.
Process all the way. I like it. Out of process will come the result that you're looking for. Well, that's some good wisdom there. Thank you, Maggie. And so thank you, both of you. That's been really insightful. You showed great grit and determination on the final day in Geelong. And I know that will carry you through this strange period that we're going through. I hope that you watching this are inspired by the way that these girls are attacking their campaign, and they're not giving up on anything despite all the craziness in the world right now. So Steph and Maggie, thanks for joining me on the call today. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere on the circuit in real life sometime soon.
Thanks,
Thank you, Andy.
Stay safe.